Welcome to Denver Gridiron and Hoops, episode number 1. We're coming in hot with those Denver Nuggets, Denver Broncos takes, and we're here to stay, baby. This is episode 1 of many. I've got here with me my very special guest. That would be my brother, Vincent McDougal. Take it away, Vinny.
Hey, glad to be here, man. I just smashed a turkey dinner. Yes, it is May, but I still smashed a turkey dinner just now.
Hey, that's impressive.
You know, we didn't do all the fixings. We didn't do all the trimmings, whatever you want to say. But it's delicious. Hopefully the tryptophan does not kick in by the end of this episode. But I'm pumped, man. We're about to break down what we love, what we're passionate about. Not only for people in the Mile High City, but beyond, because we know fans are everywhere. I'm everywhere. You're everywhere. So I'm just excited to get into today's episode and see what takes we got.
Hell yeah. And some would say, smashing a turkey dinner might be signs of depression from the Nuggets' early playoff bounds.
I won't confirm nor deny anything.
Oh, never.
But I will say there was extra gravy, on the plate first couple nights, because I do leftovers, man. Leftovers until they're gone. I know some people don't do leftovers. They throw away leftovers, and I'm pretty sure they drink with their pinky up. I'm not that type. We do leftovers until that last crumb is gone.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, some would say a turkey sandwich is kind of like the hidden surprise after the turkey dinner. And I would equate that to our very own Denver Broncos, because there was a sweet treat involved in this season. For example, we've got Bo Nix coming in hot. None of us knew what to expect. The guy came in, threw for 3,775 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions with a 93.3 passer rating, leading us to a 10-7 record. Now tell me, Vinny, right off the bat, what is your take on Bo Nix in terms of what you saw and what you were expecting?
So, I'm going to be honest, I was a big-time hater. Hate. I love college football, so I catch quite a bit of college football. And I saw what he did at Auburn. Reminded me a lot of like a Tebow with a little bit better of an arm. And then I see him, go to Oregon, and they're stacking up talent up there. And for me, he wasn't even the best quarterback in that conference at the time. They had, Caleb Williams. They had Michael Penix. And I'm thinking, man, this guy, leaves the SEC, heads up to Pacific Northwest, can't get it done at Oregon. What are we thinking? I don't remember what he was off the board, 4th or 5th quarterback off the board at that point.
I want to say it was pick 12.
Pick 12. Okay. So, and I don't remember how many quarterbacks came before him, but still, I was skeptical. And then we hit, game 1 of the season, and Peyton has the guy throwing like 45 times. Is this trial by fire? Is he seeing something in practice that nobody else is seeing? And as the season progressed, the run-pass balance came more, and there is no such thing as 50-50 anymore. And if you are, like, you play too much Madden. But that balance between run and pass started to balance out a little bit. His balance between run and pass started to balance out a little bit. And he started to, take control of the team. And that's one of the aspects of quarterback play that, is underrated. You have to take control of that team. You have to take control of that huddle. And he was able to do that as a rookie coming out. So, so many things to be excited about from his quarterback play and his maturity going into year 2. But, I was a hater at once, and I haven't seen the light. I've seen the light, David. I've seen it. And I'm excited for it.
That's what we like to hear. And to kind of second your mention of leadership, I think a moment that a lot of media was like really shocked by was when Bo Nix and Sean Payton got into a spat on the sidelines. And honestly, I think it was great for the team because it highlighted Bo Nix's fiery passion to win. And that's what we as Denver Broncos fans are accustomed to. Let's be real. We've had some down seasons, but we have championship pedigree, and we're not going to let that stuff slip off to the side very easily. I think part of what Bo Nix's major impact was that was kind of unmeasurable was his wheels. Like, nobody talked about the guy being a mobile quarterback, yet he ran for 430 yards, 4 touchdowns. And to be honest, that was like pretty laissez-faire, because he could have, if they decided to design any runs or anything like that, I think he very easily could have been in the 600s. I think the guy has got some wheels, and if we decide to use that as a bit of more of a weapon, it's going to open up some other things.
Yeah, agreed. And the better he becomes as a vertical passer, the easier those run lanes are going to be for him. And I mean, in modern football, for the longest time, it was like, you got to play from the pocket. You got to play from the pocket. And that still is very true. I don't know if that'll ever go away. But now, more than ever, it is, you have to play from the pocket and be able to escape. If you cannot do both of those things in the modern NFL, the defense is cheat, right? Like, oh, he's not going to be running. Look at Kirk Cousins last year. Oh my goodness, injury or not, the dude struggled. Why? Because he can't run, can't escape the pocket, and you look at like Aaron Rodgers has been able to do that for years. That's why he's been able to sustain his success for as long as he has. And now the league is just filled with guys who can play from the pocket and escape, make plays, whatever it is. It's something where you got to be able to do both.
Yeah, what separates it for me, just on the eye test alone, is decision making. Like, for example, you brought up the first game where he threw, I don't even know what it was, like something like 45 throws. He had some absolute ducks in there. I'm talking balls skidding off the turf 5 yards in front of the receiver. But what kind of stood out to me right away was the decision making, because no matter what, he was going to the correct read. And that was kind of why I brought in his rushing, is he doesn't force it. He takes what the offense gives him to the tune of, it reminds me of, I know I can't compare people to greats like this, but it reminds me of Jokić, man, because what he does when he's out there is he takes what is given to him and he doesn't force it. And with the help he had with Javonte Williams throwing up 513 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, I think we have to hope and pray that RJ Harvey is going to come in here and just take over that RB1 spot.
Yeah, I know a lot of people out there just, I hope a lot of people listen, but I know a lot of people just rolled their eyes when you said Jokić and talking about Bo Nix there. So,
I know.
Gotta love it. But yeah, agreed completely. And to be able to, have as solid as a season he did, with just an absence of a running game, speaks to everything you just mentioned, right? His ability to escape, his ability to run, his ability to make good decisions, ability to stretch the defense with long ball accuracy. All those things are important. And I mean, you look at the elite teams, right? Although the Eagles were able to do it a few years ago, Saquon clearly brought them over the hump this year. No Saquon, no ring. And then you look at the team they went up against, couldn't get a run game going for anything. And they have who many people consider top, if not, the top over the past, 5-6 years, multiple Super Bowl appearances, no run game, no ring. So it'll be important for his development to have something to complement him out of the backfield, because if they don't have, 4.5, yards of carry as a threat at some point in time, all of a sudden the defenses start cheating again, right? We saw it late in the season, as they kind of went on a little skid towards the end of the season and then into the playoffs. It really was just, hey, can Bo make plays? And can't have that going into year 2.
Well, yeah, especially since our wide receiver room is relatively the same. Granted, the youth has got another year under their belt, but what concerns me is just the drops, man. Like, so for example, we were 10th in the NFL with 25 points per game, which by all means, that was a major improvement from the previous 5 to 6 years. So, beggars can't be choosers. But that being said, just the amount of drops I just recall, many of our players, not just Troy Franklin, who is mainly coming to mind, but many of the players that decided to forget how to catch the ball when Bo would put it on the money. I'm just hoping that turns into improvement instead of regression. Because if there's a regression in that factor, it's going to be a tough season, unless, of course, that running game kicks up like we were talking about. Something worth mentioning, we only had 24 sacks allowed, tied for third fewest. Now, I'd have to pull up the figures, but I know that is insanely better than last year, because I know we were near the bottom of the league in sacks allowed. Now, granted, I think that was the Russell Wilson factor, holding on to the ball too long, which kind of leads me back to the decision-making. But in terms of sacks, worth mentioning, on the opposite side of the field, we were first in the NFL with 63 sacks. Did you see that coming in terms of the talent we had on the roster being able to actually set a franchise record for sacks in a season?
Definitely not. I don't know if anybody saw it coming to that level, right? You see flashes, and I have to just give the most props to VJ. I mean, to, kind of grow up in an organization, take over the head job, leave on, I wouldn't say, I guess you would say bad terms, like not from a behavioral or like, locker room cancer, front office.
Not terms favorable to him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not like anybody was like, oh, he's a bad guy. It was just, he cost us a lot of games with things as basic as time management. Yeah. And then to come back home and put together what he put together with the talent he had, it's not obviously not just him, right? Peyton knows what he's looking for in the vision for the team. So, is it the players? Is it the system? That one's tough in this situation for me to define which one really led to the success of this season. But I have got to give a ton of credit to VJ for what he's done with that defense.
Through all the things you mentioned, plus a 70-point burger dropped on him that most defensive coordinators would not have kept their job through. But I got to give Sean Payton a little bit of credit there. I don't know if he was keeping him around as a scapegoat for the end of the season or what the case may be. Maybe he saw the forest through the trees that everyone else could not when that game occurred last year. That being said, yeah, I'm definitely surprised. More than anything, defensive line like Zach Allen, nobody expected him to be almost a defensive player of the year candidate. And then us also pulling down an actual defensive player of the year in Patrick Surtain. Leads more intrigue into this Jahdae Barron pick, which we'll get to at another point in time. But that being said, just to rattle off a few more stats here, the defense had 317 yards per game allowed, which was 7th, 96.4 rushing yards per game allowed, which was 3rd, 18.3 points per game allowed, which was 3rd. That point discrepancy of 25 points per game with 18.3 points per game, I think that's going to be pretty hard to replicate, to tell you the truth, Vinny.
You also got to remember it's modern day NFL, right? Where scoring is just the part of the game. Like, if somebody dropped 70 points like 5 years ago, you'd be like, oh my goodness, it's unheard of. Now it's just like, oh yeah, Dolphins hung 70, makes sense. Even though, to your point, it was just devastating for the morale and the team at that point in time. So, I guess the piece that I also think about is how the offense has helped that defense, right? Maybe we weren't able to see some of the potential of the players and the mix that we had when we're busy only scoring 3 points a game. I know that's a exaggeration.
I mean, you're not far off, though.
That season was just miserable to watch offensively. A player like Surtain or Allen or Bonito, and insert player here, you can't really see everything they can bring to the table when the other team is up 10, 20 points in complete control of the game. So I can't help but wonder how the offense has helped the defense in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's very valuable feedback in terms of the Denver Broncos last season. The special teams unit probably saw more time than the offense did. Obviously being facetious there, but I mean, it was not fun to watch. I just recall, the Denver Broncos fans in the stands counting down the play clock because we can't get a dang play in and execute. And it's just, it drives you bonkers, and it makes you glad to be where we're at, where there's light at the end of the tunnel. It seems like it's headed in the right direction, and we can see basically the core develop and start to kind of take hold of this team. So definitely exciting place to be. Do you potentially have any hangnails left in terms of things that are bothering you that you'd like to get off on the Denver Broncos season before we move on to the Denver Nuggets?
You know, the piece that I want to see more of is Peyton's ability to adjust post, his first 20 play script, or I forget how many plays the script is at the beginning.
Completely agree.
It's clear that man knows how to game plan that beginning script. Probably one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. He understands the flow, the concepts, the plays, the give and take on this play sets up that play. And this is obviously coming from just an amateur viewpoint here, but once we get out of that script, it feels like the adjustments, whether it's in game, halftime, I look at the playoff game, right? I think we go in 7-3 or 10-3. I forget the exact score.
I'd have to look it up, but it sounds pretty close.
And there's something to be said about momentum playing at home. The Bills, you got the MVP. But, I mean, talk about night and day for a playoff game. And I point to just that adjustment period. Like, what adjustments are you making at half compared to the other team to complement what you did to start that game out? And I don't think that's the only game that happened. Obviously, that's the easy one to point to because it's, the most recent, the most pivotal of the season. But I would love to just see progression of, mixing things up throughout the game plan for all four quarters, not necessarily just that, beautifully scripted first quarter, which it's hard to deny how good he is at that.
Yeah, and as far as that playoff game goes, I was definitely worried coming into it. Obviously, Bill's super high powered and obviously a Super Bowl favorite every year. But more than anything, our defense struggles against mobile quarterbacks that tend to extend the play because, they lock down for a certain period of time, and then once that breaks down, there's obviously openings there. And that's one thing that I think potentially Jahdae Barron, who I mentioned earlier, I think that he is going to be a QB spy of sorts in the defense that they're planning. But we'll get into that in our next episode. But that being said, we're going to go ahead and segue into our real tearjerker at the moment, and that is the Denver Nuggets. With a record of 50-32, definitely feel like they underachieved, and the owner thinks that he kind of saved the season by firing Michael Malone when they were at 47-32, because according to his quote, he thought that they were going to ultimately end up in the play-in and not make the playoffs. What is your take on Michael Malone firing and the non-extension to Calvin Booth?
Yeah, a lot. Oh my goodness, a lot to unpack with that one. Talk about a loaded question.
Yep, I'm just lobbing it right over the fence. Just live hand grenade.
I was cruising the mean streets of Parker, Colorado, listening to the fan when the news broke, and I was excited for the change at that time, and the coming days as it unfolded. There were some things where I'm like, man, this ownership is still just copping out. Doesn't really address, the tough questions after the move. Took a bunch of layups from what I'm assuming are, for lack of better words, Denver media plants who, just say, hey, address this softball question versus like, hey, here's what was happening in this organization. We have to find out through back channels the drama that was created, and we still don't know. Yeah, we know there was drama. We don't know any specifics to it, and I totally get it. You're never going to get that from an organization, as big as some of these sports teams are. But it felt like they kind of copped out once the change took place. And yeah, I also disagree that they would have missed anything. I think no matter who the coach was, we probably would have maybe been a game or two off with the OK series, no matter who the coach was. You or I could have been out there, and they would have willed away to game 5, 6, or 7 in that second round.
Well, to your point, it seemed like Jokić was taking a pretty active role in coaching that team. But that being said, I personally agree with you in terms of the Nuggets owner cop-out, and mainly because of something that you've brought up to me personally before, is really the KCP non-resign. It was a move to save money, and obviously that move may have microwaved the development a little bit of Christian Braun, but it's at the expense of the team, and it's at the expense of playoff success early on. So that move basically created this whole dumpster fire that we ended up at. And I mean, if I'm being honest, I thought Malone should have been gone before he even won a championship, which then after he won the championship, I was like, oh, well, he gets like 3 to 5 years, like any other NBA coach. And I would have been wrong because maybe they wouldn't have won it with whoever else may have taken over. But we can get into my philosophies with that with Michael Malone at another time, but mainly it just came down to in-game decisions, basically adjustments and things of that nature was what had me frustrated with him. But that being said, when we were 3 games left in the season and I hear the news that Michael Malone was fired, completely took me by shock because that is not the appropriate time in the season to do so. Talking about setting yourself up for failure, to make that decision just so late in the season just really bewildered me.
I mean, I don't think anybody was on the side of the firing from a timing perspective.
Exactly.
You'd be hard-pressed to find any of the NBA heads, any of the local fans to be like, oh, yeah, that was the perfect time to get rid of him. And I think it goes back to just that mindset of the ownership group. And I know you want to maybe touch on this later, but I mean, even as much as the Adelman hiring, we rushed to make a decision on hiring him for what? What advantage did we gain by re-signing Adelman as our head coach right now?
Yeah, I don't think we need to address that later. I think now's the perfect time because it leads right back to that KCP decision.
Feels like, hey, we're just going to get by with what we got.
Yep. And it's not hurting our wallet to hire this first-time head coach for an experiment in the middle of Nikola Jokic's prime.
Yeah, and for me, once again, put it out there that, hey, we are going to find the best fit for this organization, the best fit for our prime Jokic years. Instead, what we get is immediately an announcement. Hey, he's our next guy. Imagine the message it sends to the organization that we're going to search high and low. We're going to interview college candidates. We're going to interview ex-players. And I got a list that's going to freak you out. I'm just going to share it just for shock factor here in a minute. But that sends a completely different tone and message to the organization that we will not accept status quo around here. We are going to spend the money. We're going to search high and low. We're going to take our time and make sure we get this right. Why? And this isn't college where you need a coach in so they can go out and recruit. You got the darn team in place. This was your time to do it right. And they rushed to the decision and just went with what was comfortable.
Well, and not only that, but if you're a prospective GM, which they're saying they are going to search high and low, despite also saying that they have heavy favorite inside the clubhouse, what power do you think you're stepping into when they've already hired your head coach for you?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to go out of your way to take this job as opposed to another one if you're not truly in control? So it's multifaceted there. And speaking of experiment, when I mentioned David Adelman, Calvin Booth's experiment kind of drove me berserk from the beginning, where he said that, oh, no, we're not going to take the usual route that an NBA championship team takes the next year, signing some veteran free agents, trading some of our assets for veterans. We're going to get rid of our first-round picks and keep every single pick and make 3 to 4 draft selections, and that's going to be our team going forward. The win now mindset just was never there, and he immediately admitted to it. He said, look, we might not win a championship this upcoming year and repeat, but we're going to be set up for success down the line. In the meantime, he drafted 23, 24-year-old rookies saying, oh, they're going to be ready now, when we all know 23, 24-year-old rookies are probably that old because they couldn't cut it earlier in the process.
100%. Yeah, it again, just the organization just copping out on decisions and put us in the spot we're at now. And you brought up the point of the head coach being in place, and so did I. I want to throw out some names. They're going to get spicier as they come. And just imagine yourself as a fan right now. We'll take our podcast hat off and just say, as a fan, when you hear these names versus David Adelman. All right, so first up, VC. Imagine bringing in Vince Carter as your head coach.
Right.
Tell me how excited as a fan base you are that you have somebody that's a consummate professional. Literally decades of NBA experience, and could walk into any room in the NBA and command attention.
Respect at that.
Any room. But no, we went with David Adelman. As I said, these are going to get spicier. So what about Al Horford? He might play another year. He might. Same thing. Same as VC. Consummate professional. Demands respect. Decades of experience. Is it scary to hire a first-time head coach like that? Yeah, for sure. But that's why you have Jokić in place. That's why you have him there.
It's also scary to hire what we determined was a lifelong assistant coach as your head coach.
Yeah. Couldn't cut it before, but 23, 24-year-old a player, just like a 5, 6, 7-year experience NBA bench coach. Right. These last two names, it is what it is. I'm just gonna throw them out. But wouldn't it be kind of cool, maybe Gil Arenas?
Oh, cannot go that one with you. I cannot.
The offensive mindset. I know he's a little
yeah.
cuckoo.
But I was gonna say he'll have his strap on the seat. What are you doing, Vinny?
He's a little cuckoo. All right, and then last one. Bring back the prodigal son, Carmelo Anthony.
Oh, I don't know about that. See, I liked your first two ones so much better.
I told you they got spicier as we went along. I warned you.
Okay. So the barometer was likeliness moving in rears.
You got it. Because I can't start out with Carmelo Anthony. I'll lose all my right.
See, like when you were talking about the list, I was half expecting you to go like Van Gundy 1, and then D'Antonio 2.
Mm-mm. No, I mean, look at what Redick did with the Lakers. And I get it. They had a little bromance, him and LeBron. But he brought spice.
Well, not only that,
spiciness to the Lakers.
I don't know how much you saw some of the stuff they did, but man, his in-game decision-making and also his adjustments in-game, they were impressive. I was actually really surprised with the job he was able to pull this season.
And it just bothers me that instead of, and it didn't have to be any of those NBA players, although I would have loved to have seen a couple of them, as a coach for us. It was, hey, case closed. He brought us to Game 7 against what could be the eventual NBA champions, the way it's looking like now, without any recourse whatsoever on what that message that sends to fans, what message that sends to the organization. But here we are. As of right now, the plan is to just run it back to what we just did. And we know that plan's going to change, but as of right now, technically that's the plan. Run it back.
Yeah, I very high hopes that some change is made. Obviously, we can get into those changes at another point. But I am afraid of the fact that they probably are just going to run it back. Speaking truly as a fan, I just, when they announced the organizational hire of David Adelman and then very highly recommending that they will be going forward with the GM, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, Ben something.
Mm-hmm.
Just screamed Rockies to me, man. And there's a reason why I do not support the Rockies anymore. Because, we don't need to get into that. Everyone knows they suck. But that being said, I just figured I'd throw at least one stray at the Rockies during our intro episode,
I mean, the Rockies connect us from the 1800s to present day, and there's not many sports teams you can say that will connect the A's to today. That's how bad they are. Anyways, that's a fact.
Despite the tears and everything like that, on the bright side, there is the bright side, which is Nikola Jokić. The fact that he was able to average a triple-double, and MVP discussion aside, like, if you're the same as me, you're at the point where you just don't care about it, because now it's the award where it's a participation trophy almost. They want to make sure to give it to everyone. By all means, SGA had a great season, but I do think Nikola Jokic's season was historical. And just really, more than anything, just a pleasure to watch unfold.
Yeah, I keep thinking that he's just going to ride off into the sunset. He's super competitive. You can see his fire. I mean, you saw it, like you said, this year. But, I mean, what else does he have? He can go to another team, a bigger market, get more talent around him. But that means kind of uprooting his family from, the Denver life, the Denver scene that they've built. And I can bet you, just with his family values, it's not high on his priority list. And if you got an organization that's just not trying to deliver for you, what more motivation does he need? And this is a completely different topic, but I can't help but wonder, just, are these the final few years we're going to be able to watch with him and enjoy every moment of it?
Well, I mean, you definitely, you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of what's in the back of all of our minds, I think the only thing we have going for us with Jokić is the fact that he doesn't crave the spotlight. One of those very, very, very rare superstars that actually doesn't like the popularity, because otherwise I think he'd already be a Laker. They probably would have combined Luka and him and gave the Nuggets the second pick in the draft and called it good from there, because, the first one had to go for Doncic there. But that being said, I am curious, because of his competitiveness, if he would retire early or if that trade comes along.
Yeah, and he got a lot of heat at the end of the year for some games that weren't up to his par. And you can't forget, the dude just played the Olympics.
Yeah.
He took, there's a few NBA players on there.
Don't discredit the accomplishment.
No, I'm just saying there's a few NBA, like, what is it, Bogdanovich.
Yeah.
So there's maybe one or two other NBA, players on that team. And he brought them within a couple possessions of a gold medal match. Just after going to Game 7 against the T-Wolves, playing a full season, another full season, guy doesn't miss games whatsoever. He's played a ton of basketball in a short period of time. And we've seen other players break down. We've seen, Kevin Durant go down.
Murray.
There you go, right? We've seen these other players go down after playing that much basketball. I think of, like, LeBron as somebody who didn't break down. Jokić is right there in that conversation, doesn't break down. So it'll be good to see him have some time off. I know he made some comments about he might play for the Worlds for his team, which just more basketball for him. But it'd be nice if he took a step away from that, at best, bronze medal team and just, hey, I'm just going to mess with the family and the horses for an off season and come back ready for next year. But he's got to have something to look forward to as well, though.
Hey, you got to be careful over there. You're going to get us in trouble calling him Jokić. There's going to be some diehard fans out there that are going to stomp us into the ground.
I get it. It's just, I live in Georgia right now. So, I mean, we have a hard time with, the silent J's, the regular. I just struggle with it. So
it's like Christian Brown. When I'm watching the game, it's just a reaction to call him Braun, because, spell your name right. I mean, how hard is it?
I get it. Jokić, got it. It's just it's a habit.
So he dropped 29.6 points per game, 12.7 rebounds, 10.2 assists. Made NBA history as the first center with 30-20-20 triple-double, upon many other accomplishments. I don't have long enough lists to list everything this guy does. Widely considered as an MVP candidate, but really hamstringed by one thing and one thing only: his supporting cast. So we've got Jamal Murray, who also decided to play in the Olympics for some odd reason and almost hinder the Canada team. But that being said, he did manage to get 63 games out, which honestly I was surprised by. He doesn't seem like the type of guy to knock out that many. That being said, I do think he's a solid second piece. I think that we need to reconfigure this roster where we either get more depth or someone else to kind of carry that load, because I think he's moving to the point where he can't be a primary point guard and he's got to be an off-ball guard. It's too tough for him to bring up the ball every possession, and unfortunately, conditioning's never really going to better. That's coming from, me, this fat guy sitting on the chair here watching him. But
smashing turkey dinners.
Yeah, but I'm not getting a raise to put me at $50 million this year and kind of preventing the salary cap from this team. But that being said, I'm super, super pleasantly surprised from the overall effort from Aaron Gordon, not only during the regular season, battling through injuries, but his super awesome, impressive postseason run, where we saw multiple game winners. We saw effort on both ends of the floor, and just really being the heart and soul of this Nuggets that once upon a time was Jamal Murray. What is your overall room temperature on both Jamal Murray and then after that Aaron Gordon?
So Murray's tough because obviously we have playoff level Murray and regular season level Murray.
Yeah.
And I'm aside from Jimmy Buckets, there's not too many elite players where you have just this stark contrast between their playoff performance and regular season performance.
The clutch gene.
I don't even attribute it to the clutch gene. I'm talking, for me, like effort.
Yeah.
Why you clearly have this level of play, like you have this ability, the capability to do it. Do you have like the effort to want to do it during the regular season, playing back-to-back nights, traveling? He easily could be an all-star point guard or, all-star guard. If he played in the regular season like he did in the playoffs, he chooses for whatever reason not to.
I mean, he could be all NBA third team, like if he played up to his potential night in, night out.
And I get it. You don't want to be a try-hard in the NBA regular season, but you are on a max contract, buddy.
Not only that, you have the best player in the world by your side.
You literally have that ability to turn it to that next gear, and night in, night out, for whatever reason, in the regular season, he just does not do it. And that's the part that frustrates me but most about Murray. Because, imagine if we had playoff Murray during the regular season, what's our seeding look like? Yeah. Do we play Oklahoma City in the second round, or do we play them in the Western Conference Finals? And if you're playing that deep, do things look a little bit differently that deep into the postseason? And that's been the case for him, really post-championship, where I don't know that his regular season mindset's in the right place. So you look at Russ, you look at Aaron Gordon, you look at Jokić. Don't say Jokić. Don't want to piss anybody off. They all have that mindset in the regular season to, perform at, their peak level, whatever that peak level is at that day. So that's kind of my bone to pick with Murray. I would love to see playoff Murray in the regular season more often and battle out some of these games, buckle down, play some D, try not to turn the ball over, all those things. So that's kind of where I'm at on him. For Gordon, it's impressive to change a 3-point shot at any point in a career.
Facts.
For any level. You like look at, Lonzo Ball, or insert any NBA player, any college player, any high school player here, changing, your release, how you shoot, when you shoot, why you shoot, to the level that he did shows you how much of a gym rat the dude is.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but he has a full-size court in his house, and he has the team over for practices sometimes.
That's the only way to change your shot, right? Is if you literally wake up
when you live on the court.
Yeah, drink a protein shake and go straight to shooting threes, because all the other intangibles have always been there. The ability to just buckle down on defense, the willingness to rebound, the athleticism, the basketball IQ, but the fact that he changed his 3-point shot around, really altered his entire season and how he looked in the postseason. If he doesn't have that if his 3-point shot, well, and his free throws also improved too. If he had same free throws, same 3-point shot from championship season, he's not doing what he did this year. He's just not. He'll still be impactful, still be effective, still have all those intangibles I mentioned, but that truly changed his game.
Not only what you mentioned with the regular season and playoffs, but his career.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at him extending his career, which is beautiful for the Nuggets because what's the first thing to always go, It's the legs. Well, it seems to me as if he's kind of taken that Vince Carter you mentioned earlier route where you were a huge high flyer, dunker, and then all of a sudden you start transitioning to that 3-pointer and defense and kind of carve out a niche role in that regard. I think that's going to pay dividends considering we just locked him down on that contract extension.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And then, so to kind of pivot here, just kind of to round out the starting five, we've got Porter Jr. and Brown. I'm going to start off with Brown. Extremely impressed. I've kind of been on the Christian Brown defense train for quite some time. I think the guy has what it takes. Now, there's some deficiencies. He can't guard the type of player that a KCP could because he doesn't have quite the burst of speed for that perimeter defense, but he is just more than capable, and you can put him on a guy that's bigger, for example, someone that plays small forward, and he's not going to struggle as much because he does have that strength and that kind of tenacity. He does occasionally get in foul trouble, but overall just super, super positive about the season that he put forth. How are you feeling on Christian Brown?
Yeah, I mean, he's a candidate for most improved player, compliments regular season Jokić, probably one of the best compliments to his game out there.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Which makes, his life during the regular season a lot easier, right? All the stuff that Murray's not willing to do, run the floor, bring energy during the regular season. And you need that. You need people to get you through that 82 grind at an elite level. And he's there. You could see though in the playoffs when the game slowed down, I would say he struggled when the games, in the playoffs, it's just so slow. There's fast break points are only created off of turnovers. Whereas regular season, you could get fast break points off a made bucket.
Yeah.
See, all goes in the hoop. Jokić throws it 75 feet.
Right.
That stuff does not happen in the playoffs.
Which, let's be real, in order to, get those turnovers you talked about, we got to play some defense. So that being said, that brings me to the last player in the starting five, Michael Porter Jr. Now, obviously, after the playoff run, everyone's going to be a little soured on Porter. More than anything, obviously, we do have to bring up the injury and everything like that. But my thing is it's ran its course. I think that he's the player we got to move. We either got to move him for assets or hopefully move him for a player that can at least step in and play. In general, the main problem I see is just a processor problem. You can see him thinking, and if I can see him thinking, those defenders or those offensive players across from him can see him thinking. So I just think at this point he's become a liability despite his 40% 3-point percentage. I'll kind of leave it at that. I can pick on him plenty in a forced fumble segment that we have where we kind of call a player out. But that being said, what's your take on Porter season, postseason, just in totality?
Yeah, you look at the regular season numbers, and I haven't studied it enough, but I think he had career high in points and or rebounds, and so it was either both, and played almost a full season, which that has always been a concern about his availability. So
durability's been on point.
Yeah, past 2 seasons played, full entire regular seasons plus postseason. This year scored the most, points per in his career, I believe rebounds as well in his career. So, if I'm the organization, I'm saying, hey, that shoulder is the reason why he didn't play so well. It's the regular season MPJ is the one you're going to get. And not every team needs him to come in and dominate in the playoffs. Right. There's plenty of teams out there that need somebody who can score in the regular season and, be a starter night in, night out. And he checks all those boxes. The thing that perplexes me about his game is he still just for some reason cannot dribble. You see him, he'll get a rebound, he'll take a couple dribbles, and he's immediately looking like, who can I pass this ball to? Because I don't want nothing to do with it. He'll take guys off the dribble occasionally, and do a little spin move and try and, Euro step or any, but he just does not have, any ability to break down off the dribble. Like, I look at him as our version, just a little shorter, of Chet. Lots of talent, lots of skill, big guy, has the ability to move, but he just cannot break people down off the dribble like somebody like Chet. And it just severely hinders like his utility for a team. If he had those spot up capabilities, which he clearly has, and somehow, some way he worked on his game, Aaron Gordon style, to break down off the dribble, maybe actually keep the ball in a fast break and, take it coast to coast every once in a while, that changes the complete dynamics of what he brings to a team.
Well, and the saddest part is if we got 50% of regular season Michael Porter Jr. in this previous playoff run that we just endured, we're still playing. It just sucks that he's an 82 game player and not a 16 win player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just, I don't know if my math was right there on the 16.
Well, if you win 16, or if you win 4 each round, right?
Yeah, okay.
Like you could end up playing way more than that.
Well, yeah, but that's why I preference the win portion of it.
Yeah, 16W.
Yeah, man. But it still is first world problems. We're talking about a guy that averages 18.2, 7 rebounds on 40% 3-point shooting, if not plus. I don't have the 3-point percentage in front of me, but it is first world problems, but it's our problems in our backyard, if you get what I mean. Our offensive rating was 120.6, which was top 5 in the NBA. Defensive rating was 114.9, which is middle of the pack. But the effective field goal percentage on the whole team was 57%. I don't have the 3-point percentage in front of me, but oh my gosh, I really wanted Seth Curry last season because we just needed more spot up shooting and a guy that can actually handle the ball and move up the court. Just really hope we address that this offseason. Kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on the Nuggets in terms of roster is Julian Strawther and Peyton Watson. Both guys seem to have potential, but unfortunately this season we should have seen them play. And we did not. Where do you stand with those guys? Are those guys pieces that we need to move on from at this point for an established guy that can come in here and contribute right away? Or do we take the patience route?
I look at the teams left this year, and they play deeper than the typical NBA team has the last, 7-10 years. Like the Thunder play deep. And I don't think it's like this thing where they're so deep because like they're 7, 8, and 9 guys are so talented. Like I don't see a huge difference between some of the late bench players in OKC and a Peyton Watson. So I think you need to keep that for depth, especially during the regular season and as we see this year in the playoffs. Really, the changes, like you alluded to earlier, need to come where the big salary's at. And see what that looks like. Do you make a splash and say, Murray, it's been a pleasure? It would be scary to see, but it could happen. MPJ, but then you're limited in who you can get. Like Giannis is out there. Obviously, that's a dream world, but
yeah,
Giannis,
not feasible.
Giannis, like his style of play would not bode well with Jokić. Like. If anybody's playing defense against that team, it's like, we're just going to crowd the middle for both of you. Good luck. So you have to be selective in what talent we bring around, and that's also going to be a problem.
Now I do want to live in that fantasy landscape for just a half a minute here. If if we were able to get Giannis, now, hear me out, I would crowd the paint as well. That's part of the problem that I think we had in this current Nuggets playoff run was that we've just become so reliant on the Jokić outside the 3-point line pick and roll game, where occasionally we need the guy down low. He needs to gobble up rebounds and get those offensive rebounds that he did for 75% of his career. And I think it's all situational, but now by all means, that was just me kind of going off on a tangent there. But yeah, Giannis, I don't see it happening. We would have to target players like Paul Pierce recommended, where we would package Porter for DeMar DeRozan, something similar to that. My all-time favorite, which I'm going to pound the table forever for, is going to be Porter for Jeremy Grant. That being said, Jeremy Grant had a down season, but I just think that his profile for this team, being a 3-and-D player that can defend 2 through 5, packaged with Gordon, who can defend 1 through 4, would be really impressive alongside Jokić.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards mid-season trade deadline type deal. Like what team is going to have a player, maybe with like a 1-year option left, season's not going as planned, and that's when we make our move.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think of I know he's coming off injury, but can you imagine the Mavericks are just playing horrible, and Kyrie Irving, I think he's on a player option, one year left or something on his contract, and so that Mavs person still wants to build the team, getting something like MPJ plus whatever for like Irving, or even take the risk, right? Murray, for something of that stature where a team's just not performing. They got a star that's either about to leave or on a 1-year deal. You're trying to get something in return before it comes. I think that's going to be when they make their move, because it's just going to be, they're just so hamstrung right now. It's going to be tough to do anything.
Well, and if we're talking about trade deadline moves, there's a very real scenario out there where some veteran says, you know what, I want to compete. Denver's got that guy. I want to join that guy. Mm-hmm. So that's what we have to hold our hat on, because in all actuality, this entire ride we've been on with the Nuggets all was results of us drafting a guy in the second round during a Taco Bell commercial that ended up surpassing everybody's expectations, becoming the best in the world. So we're going to hold our hat on that until we can no longer do so.
Agreed. Yeah, we're sitting here today talking, with a banner at Pepsi Center.
Once again, first world problems we're talking about.
Which never, ever in my lifetime I thought would happen. I was thinking the Avs would, be the only team that would ever bring a banner to that place for the longest time, and here we are. So
could have had 2, but best laid plans of mice and men.
It was heartbreaking. I was going to Staples. Don't ask me why. Who goes to Staples? There's Amazon. What was I thinking?
Yeah, ordered online.
Like, seriously. And dude saw I had my Nuggets shirt on. He's like, "You're a Nuggets fan? I don't see many of you out here." I was like, yeah. And he's like, "What do you think of, the coach?" And yada, yada. He's like, "Wow, y'all should have at least two rings with that guy. At least."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Tell me about it." And there's still time. Anything is possible.
And that's it, And really what it comes down to, you and I are going to dive into that a little deeper here in this upcoming episode. Specifically, we're going to be breaking into the Nuggets offseason ahead. We're going to be also breaking down the Broncos' current offseason that's been unfolding, kind of dive into some of the things that happened there. That's for us to enjoy at that point in time. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up today on today's first episode of Denver Gridiron and Hoops. We want to thank everybody for joining us for the ride.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Peace.
In the Mile High City, where the lights shine bright, the Broncos fight hard in the cold, clear night. With every Hail Mary, our hopes take flight, and the Nuggets dribble dreams into the spotlight. 24 seconds, the clock's racing down. Denver Gridiron and Hoops, Hoops, we stand tall with every dunk and three. We give it out all in the city of champions. We heed the call. Together as one, we rise, never fall. With a quick crossover and a thunderous slam, the crowd's rolling wild, it's now or never, man. From the court to the field, we stake our claim. Together we'll rise, united in the game. Hit sticks collide, feel the energy surge. Denver Gridiron and Hoops, we stand tall with every dunk and three. We give it our all in the city of champions. We heed the call. Together as one, we rise, never fall. So let's lace up tight, let the games begin. In Denver's heart where we all win.